Redditors with thin walls, what have you heard in your apartment? Someone sneezed. We said bless you. They laughed. I've heard my neighbor giving his granddaughter a xylophone for birthday, I guess. She could play it well and kept playing for a while. Immediately after she left, I could hear him trying to play something his granddaughter played. He practiced for a solid hour until he managed to play this song correctly and stopped with a joyful yes. It was one of the purest things I've ever experienced. What can only be described as my flatmate having phone sex while using Christian Bale's Batman voice. Upstairs neighbors were a single mom and teenage daughter. They were very loud. The mom's room was above my room. One day I had off and was woken up by sex upstairs. It was pretty common in the previous couple weeks. This time, though, someone came in and started screaming, "You're having sex in my bed?" Turns out the daughter had been skipping school and coming back to the apartment with her boyfriend. They were the ones having sex in the mom's bed. The fight that ensued should have earned both women awards. I moved from far away, so I have a different state license plate than everyone else at the apartment complex. A couple of days ago I had my upstairs neighbor drunkenly ranting to his wife about what he thinks I'm up to. He's convinced that I'm on the run from something. I'm just in grad school, mayo. I lived next to a couple some years ago, and they came home after a night out and started fighting about who was better at darts. I thought they were joking, but it got pretty heated. Doors were slammed. Edit. Since people are asking, they were playing darts at the bar earlier that night. From what I could tell, they were playing as a team and the boyfriend wasn't pulling his weight and was super defensive about it. Had an off night, allegedly. The girlfriend was mad he couldn't accept she was better. I'm no detective, but think they had some relationship issues bigger than darts. I live next to a guy who took care of his disabled girlfriend. She stayed home with a nurse while he worked to support them and pay for her healthcare. Everyone really admired him for it. He used to get drunk and tell her that if she doesn't start putting out, he's gonna throw her out. William. We do not hit. His mom was visiting. He was 30. My parents told me stories about the apartment they lived in when I was a baby. The lady above us was a classically trained pianist and her music room was above my room. Apparently when I would start crying in my crib, she would start playing and I would go right to sleep. After my parents divorced, my dad stayed in the same apartment. A few years later, when I went to visit him, I was about 10 or 11. I got to finally meet her for the first time. The woman who used to play me to sleep as a baby taught me how to play the piano 10 years later. Edit. Wow. Thanks for my first silver, guys. I'm sad to say I retained very little from my lessons, but I can play a mean chopsticks. Edit. And gold too? Okay, that's rad. Yeah, you'll like me. You really like me. Yesterday when I was taking my neighbor was blasting classical music on full volume. It was the most majestic and relaxing I've taken in a long time. Pre-dawn hours, blizzard outside, everything still and quiet. My roommate and I heard our neighbor on the other side of the firewall fart, wet and deep like a stifled baritone sax, and exclaimed to himself in a twisted combination of awe and disgust, "Oh my god." We burst out laughing and hear him chime in with pride, "Did you guys hear that?" Vindicated that his fart was heard and forever lives in our memories. An argument about money while I was doing the dishes. It ended with a slammed door and one of them on a piano, hitting the keys like a maniac. Some people read, some people go get something to eat, some people exercise. This mother relieves stress by going crazy on a piano. Lol. I've heard and felt the neighbors upstairs having sex, and apparently they like to rearrange the furniture at least twice a week. I can hear when my neighbors vacuum. Our building tends to vacuum together as a result. I hear my upstairs neighbor and go, "Oh hey, I should vacuum, haven't done that in a while," and it's already noisy. Then my downstairs neighbor and my left hand neighbor start vacuuming. It's kinda hilarious. My right hand neighbor doesn't vacuum with us, but does sing opera while doing dishes. Not in my house, but I travel a lot for work and stay in a lot of hotels. So far my favorite was hearing someone banging around in the shower for a while, then this exchange. Loudly, "Hey, wash my balls." Louder, "Wash your own goddamn balls." Yelling, your stinks." They got quiet after that, probably because they heard me howling with laughter and realized people could hear them. I woke up one morning in a daze, started walking down my stairs. I live in a townhouse/condo, and paused and farted way louder than I expected. My neighbor next door started laughing so hard from her living room. Our neighbors were once talking loud, and I was nosy, so I put my ear up to the wall and realized she was reading him Harry Potter pretty enthusiastically, and it made my heart melt. My dad snoring like a bear, and my mum snoring like a walrus. If they argue, they snore out of sync, and if they have a nice day they snore in sync. It's really quite sweet. Thanks for all the likes and comments everyone. I really didn't expect this to blow up in the way it has. Couple upstairs would argue frequently. One particular evening, they had an epic battle. It was hours long. About 2 hours into the argument, 11 PM on a weeknight, we heard the woman shout first of all. That was the moment we knew sleeping wouldn't be restful that night. I actually manage an apartment complex where my office is surrounded by a 1-bedroom unit. The building is old and the walls are thin. The tenant that used to live in the unit was a quiet man, but would frequently sing beautiful opera music. His voice was amazing, and I loved it every time I heard him sing. Then one time I saw him in the halls, and made the mistake of asking if he was the one who sang these beautiful opera songs. His face turned red, but he confirmed that it was him. I told him that I always enjoyed it when I heard him sing, and that it would always brighten my day. Never should have said anything, because I never heard him sing again. My landlord can his wife couple of times per week. She screamed like a porn star. They were on the first floor, and I was on the second one. Sometimes if I'd walk above their bedroom, and they heard it, they'd stop for a couple of seconds, and go right back to Boner Town after. Edit. Forgot something. So yeah, we were 3 guys living in the apartment and we'd often invite some girls over, friends, to have dinner and drinks, but we would usually stay up pretty late, and it would be in the middle of the week, pretty much once a week. They were the kind of girls who laugh/talk pretty loud, and our landlord asked us if we were having orgies. He wasn't even kidding. Didn't know how to respond to that, so we just laughed it off and kept him wondering. My ex-neighbors never let their kids leave the house and preferred to raise bubble children. The older son, 12 or 13, was pitifully fragile. One day I heard him crying because he shit on his own hands. Heard my neighbors having sex when I lived in my previous apartment. Our bedroom shared a wall. This in itself is not unusual. It was like, give me your king baby, make me pregnant, daddy, waking me up at 2 AM. That killed my soul. Years ago I had an upstairs neighbor. At 2 AM, every night, I would hear something sprint across the entire apartment. I realized 3 things. It was very fast, it took small strides, and it never deviated from its path. One day, I saw my neighbor outside and I said, I don't know how you have energy at 2 AM. He responded with, dude, I've been working the midnight to 8 AM shift for 15 years. Doesn't bother me at all. That night, I watched him leave his house, drive off, and waited 2 hours. At exactly 2 AM, I heard what sounded like 2 feet hit the floor in his bedroom, and the marathon started. A few weeks later, I see him outside. I tell him what I hear at night and he says, that's strange. No one has my keys. It's just me and my rabbit up there. More what my neighbor heard. I'm a deep sleeper and was an even deeper sleeper as a teenager. My phone alarm was going off for 30 minutes and my neighbors could hear it through the walls, assumed it was a burglar alarm, and called the police. Waking up to the police banging on my door was confusing. One day my neighbor was spontaneously singing the national anthem, America, and stopped midline, and cussed because they messed up the words. So I sang the correct next line, and they burst out laughing, before coming back in, and finishing the song with me. I've still never met that neighbor. 10/10 voice. My last apartment had particularly weak walls between apartments. One night I was reading in bed, and I was unknowingly the third party to a particularly nasty fight between the couple living next door. The fight lasted for almost an hour, and was apparently the end of their said relationship, as she was going to leave him and the apartment the next day. The longer the fight went on, the more interested I became as I pieced snippets of the reason for the fight together. I did not know them personally, only enough to wave and say hi, help them with carrying up groceries etc. Good neighbor stuff. It seemed couple A, both early 30s, were becoming bored with their sex life. For whatever reason they decided that they would fulfill a fantasy of theirs and invite a third individual to join them sexually. Male A and female A found through some online means male B to join them. I guess things worked out for a while. From the snippets of the fight I caught, male B had joined them on multiple occasions for various sexual escapades. The kicker was female A came home early from a work trip and found male A and male B deeply engrossed in their sexual acrobatics without her. Female A flipped out, and I guess after that point they tried to patch things up, but she caught both of them on 2 other occasions, the latest being the night before fight night that I was unashamedly listening to. Neither neighbor would hold my gaze for long the next morning. I think they were too embarrassed or ashamed to ask if I had heard anything and presumed I heard it all. I even offered to carry a box of stuff she was lugging out of the apartment. Remember, good neighbor. She mumbled something and said no. He was packed, moved out and gone a week later. Needless to say, it was the most interesting thin-walled apartment experience I have had the vicarious pleasure to be part of. Edit. Thanks for the interest and replies folks, and the kind stranger in silver. Wish I could tell you what happened as a follow-up, but alas I have no idea what happened to the troubled trinity and the tryst. Edit. My humble thanks to the gracious golden guest for your gift. Gracious. They warned me about you. I never should have married you, my 60 years old neighbors. And recently a heated argument between different neighbors' adult kids. The son had caught his son, 5 years old, playing doctor with his sister's daughter 4 years old. They argued very loudly about it in their back garden, which is completely surrounded by other houses and apartments. I think at least 30 households could hear it. Edit. Playing doctor means getting naked and comparing bits. In our old apartment, our upstairs neighbor had extremely loud, theatrically enthusiastic sex in the middle of the day. The puzzle was that he would stop in the middle and we'd hear him walk to where the bathroom is, stay there for a minute or two, and then walk back and resume in the bedroom. It was the same pattern every time. We could never figure out what that was all about. Any ideas welcomed. I lived under some Cubans who played Air Supply when they had sex at the absolute loudest volume they could. They also really enjoyed soccer/football, and the woman would make sounds like a siren, just long extended woo, for minutes on end, whenever something exciting happened. They were pretty terrible neighbors, really obnoxious and loud all the time. They would mop their patio, and the dirty water ran all over our porch. They also poured out used mop water off the patio too. The parking was terrible in that complex, and they would occupy 2 spaces with 1 vehicle. They pretended not to speak English whenever we tried to talk to them. Even before all the problems, I try to be friendly with my neighbors, but they would also speak loud English right outside our apartment, as if we couldn't hear them. So one day I tried to say hello to them and got a terse, rude reply in Spanish followed by no comprendo, so I casually asked my sister if she thought the guy knew his wife was sleeping with that blonde they always had over. Not made up, they were having an affair. There was lots of screaming from their apartment later on. No regrets. Edit. Silver. Noise. You guys are the. And these comments are great.